Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chiscool Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Whiteout Survival, I want to talk about the things you can do to train more troops, because I just gained 10 million power in troop training, which I know to an endgame player probably doesn't sound like much, but for the first week in my account's age, like, that seems pretty good to go from 14 million power to 24.5 million power. I'll tell you exactly how I did it. I'll tell you why I did it. And if you like these early game guides, consider subscribing, because we're whaling our way through the early game, and we're on our way to Gen 2? I don't know. Can't even say we're going to the end game because like it's a long time till that. But consider subscribing. Thank you for doing that. Ton of people have been smashing subscribe. And like this is a brand new channel dedicated to Whiteout Survival. And it's really, I feel, kind of popping off, which I'm loving it. Thank you for your support. So it's the Hall of Chiefs. Troop training was the thing we had yesterday. Technically, right before reset is when I did my training. And I put a ton of points on the board. And other people did too. And I waited till the final sort of 30 minutes assessing, trying to figure out if I was going to push or not, to see what is the leaderboard going to look like, because you can train really, really, really fast in this game, okay? One of the levers for how fast you can train, in terms of literally like how quickly you can push the buttons, is that there's a buff that lets you double your troop training capacity. Not speed, but capacity. So if I go over to the buffs, the little up arrow, growth, training capacity, 3,000 gems for 2 hours, I can double my training capacity, which I did to do my push at the end. Did I need to do this? I think the answer is actually no, probably a waste of 3,000 gems, because it only took me like 5 minutes to jam out the troops, and I would have been fine if it was 10 minutes. Like, honestly, it would have been fine. Whatever, is what it is. Or I could have waited longer, and like, you know, that's not what you're here for. What you're here for is training speed. So the thing I did before I trained all those troops is I optimized my training speed. Well, how do I do that? I went in and I looked at my research. And there's obviously research periodically in the growth section that is improving your training speed. This is the main optimization that I found that is extremely meaningful, like 37% over here. If I scroll on down, I've got another 13.5% over there. Scroll on up. Here's another 30%, right? Like, here's another 22.6%. So ideally, before you train a bunch of troops, you want to get to like this point where you've done a lot of this research to improve your training speed, because it's just efficiency of your speed ups at that point. So I tried to push as far as I could here, even though it cost me speed ups that I could have used for training. I figured, man, it's just efficient, and it might have cost me some potential score, but like, yeah, I want to do well in the event, but I don't want to like really, really make bad plays with like my efficiency, right? I mean, the tagline on my channel is get value and smash enemies. I've been doing this for a long time, and like it pains me to not get value. So it even pained me to train at all without having 100% maxed training, but like I know that's unrealistic. So whatever. This is one way you improve your training speed. Another way you improve your training speed is the troop training buildings themselves give you a moderate training speed boost. Very moderate, okay? If we look at the more details section, you can see that like, yeah, at level 27, I have 7.2%, but you can see one research right now is giving me like 13% of training speed. So like these buildings increasing your training speed, very, very, very moderate, okay? But not nothing. And so that's worth having. Up next is actually a hero that can increase your training speed. And this is very important. If we scroll on down here, it's Ling, who gives you training speed on her skill right here. Total control. You can get upwards of 20% training speed. Now, realistically, at the very start of the game, maybe you can push her to 2 stars, which means you can get this skill to 3. That's what I was able to do, and I opened a lot of gold keys. So I think 12% at the start of the game is a nice objective, but 8% is more realistic. And obviously over time, like you want to push to 20% on her. I will point out, however, that probably, I'm not totally sure, but probably more important than this training speed might be the research speed on Jasser. So I don't know how you want to prioritize doing the upgrades on those particular heroes. And pro tip, if you didn't know, there are these epic heroes that give you passive benefits all the time. Jasser giving research speed is crucial. You've got Ling giving you training speed, and you've got Xiu Yun giving you healing speed. This is the one I think is least kind of important to me anyways, right? And your building speed, you probably already figured out, comes from Zinman. I covered this in several other videos, all right? So Hero skills. Relevant for the one hero right here. Again, I would use maybe some of your shards to tip over to get to 2-star or to get that final last bit you need to get to 3-star. But otherwise, I assume research speed is going to be a big bottleneck for progress. Training is also extremely important. So like I would not fault you for doing this. And another place where you can get a small amount of training speed is actually going to be from your alliance research. Okay. So if we go to the tech, scroll on up over here, advanced training, that's the one. Okay. This is where you can get a small amount of research, training speed, 5% over here. And then we scroll on down. It's probably another 5% over here. Right? These percentages aren't much. And we've gotten to the point where it's very small percentage points. How important is it really? I could be crazy, so don't take me at my word for this. But I felt like the more percent training speed I had, the less it seemed to matter. Does that make sense? I mean, you can't just go infinite on training speed and then they're like giving you speed ups back for training troops. So I don't know, man. Let me know down below in the comments. Another thing that can increase your training speed is if we make our way to the world. We don't have these yet, but we're in the process of unlocking them. And I don't know if we get the training speed one yet. I think we don't actually. There are these facilities. These facilities, when captured, give buffs. This one over here gives training speed. Now, you probably won't have this. In fact, you definitely won't have this for the first Hall of Heroes. Later ones, there are these sort of statewide buffs that you can get, and probably titles, probably, like a kingdom buff, and then these facilities. But then within your control, back to the first Hall of Heroes event, I unlocked the island. And I did this by rushing my City Hall level. That's my furnace level. By rushing the furnace level, I got the docks. The docks takes you to the island, and there's one, it's a very small thing. It's the barbecue stand, baby, which is actually hilarious because I own a proper smoker and I make just absolutely ridiculous barbecue. But 1% training speed. It ain't much, but it's honest work. Okay, barbecuing, everybody. So those were all the ways that I optimized my training speed in sort of preparation for doing the training. And I wish I had done more of that, by the way, on the first day of the Hall of Heroes event. In other words, if I were doing this all over again and had I realized how impactful the troop training day was going to be, because for perspective, I put 300 million points on the board. Actually, technically, it was 302 million points on stage 3. Okay. And my total score is 423 mil, right? So here I am on day 1. I'm like, yeah, I'm upgrading my furnace. Look at me. Yeah. And I made a video and I was like, look at me go. And then troop training came around and I was like, oh my God, actually the whole thing is troop training. And I have not understood what was about to happen. And then it happened. And then I bought a bundle or two and then I pushed power. And here we are. Here we are, my friends. So this stage will likely define your, Hall of Heroes event, okay? Or Hall of Chiefs event, gosh darn it. And the troop training here, yeah, you can kind of have some troops queued up and maybe you claim them on the day of, and everybody should do some amount of training. But with regard to my motivation for training at the start, and I think I mentioned a 40%, 20%, 40% balance. In other words, I went for 40% of my total troops to be infantry, 40% of my total troops to be marksmen, and 20% of my total troops to be the lancers. And the goal there is to sort of follow what other people have said is a decent ratio for a bunch of stuff. Doesn't matter. I mean, I'm going to train more troops. I can balance the ratio or change it to whatever I want. That's what I did initially because that's what was recommended to me. And I think, sure, I don't know what I'm doing. Seems fine. Holy smokes. So all in all, what would I do differently if I were doing this all over again? Like I said, I would have pushed forward all that technology research onto day 1 of the Hall of Chiefs. So the way you would do that is you'd go to your chief's house, you'd be ready to go, you would pop the double time buff, over here and do all your building, all of it in day one, all of your building, including leveling up your research center as much as possible. Then I would do all my research for troop training, every bit of it. I go nuts on the troop training, okay, for the research, okay, and then because you get points for that on day one. Then when the troop training day comes around, you're just ready, baby. You're big chillin', you're super ready, and you just jam out those troops, all right? And if I haven't put it on screen yet, I'll put it on screen. It happens very fast. Like in terms of time to train, in other words, the actual like pressing of the buttons, the way that you could make this obviously go faster would be to have more like resources open, which I didn't do, and I didn't need to because I was shocked at how fast I could just jam out troops, which was great. It was great. I did not want to spend hours and hours. And like, in fairness, the game is so early at this stage and in this state with this account that like people don't have, hoarded up speed ups like crazy from bundles and time and then to make that just completely bonkers. So in terms of individual power, we can go back to the leaderboard, and I am third currently. Barely, but definitely third. And our overall power, if you're following along with the journey, we're up to 545 million power as an alliance. For 1 week old, how are we doing? I feel like we're doing fine. Very happy with how things are shaping up in our state, besides the drama that we had for the fortresses, which was a good time. If you want to see how that went, I'm going to have a card in the end screen for that video. Is there anything else, though, that people should know about training troops? I feel like that covered the big things, but if there's anything else I'm missing, like, you should go straight to the pinned comment. This is always the case. If I miss something in a video, I'm gonna update the pinned comment. And sometimes someone is gonna leave such an eloquent comment, like I can't do better than them, and I'm just gonna pin their comment, right? That's the game plan. So if you've got advice on what to do for that, definitely leave a comment. Troop training percentage, the speed, is the thing that I'm sort of interested in. The final advice I'll offer, if you are trying to gain points in this event, is that training higher tiers of troops is definitely more efficient points per speed up used. I did a bunch of math to figure that out. Oh, nerdy stuff. But the points per minute of speed up was better for higher tiers. So I realized, like I said, I made mistakes here. And actually, in one of my prior videos, I said I'm a streamer. So like, and YouTuber. So my mistakes are going to be very public when I make them. So like, I'll just point them out and hang a lamp on it, and it is what it is, right? But one of them was that I had so many buildings I upgraded in my 5 minutes in heaven with the double time, was that I hadn't taken the marksman camp to 26. It was 25. So I didn't unlock the higher tier of troop. So before doing all this training, I popped the stinking double time, as you can see here, just to take this building up, because sure, it gives me like 0.2% extra training speed, but also you get way more points with the higher tiers of troops. If I had tier 10 troops, that'd be even better. But great news, upgrading my troops will be a valuable thing that I do later. So, I'll get the points later when I upgrade to a higher tier. GG. So now I actually have enough troops to like do things in the early game. But also worth mentioning, if you train lots of troops, now you need to worry about your infirmary. I can only hold 72,800, so somebody hits my city and I'm just cooked. Which, unlikely to happen in my state. And also I'd probably get reinforced, and whoever did it would almost certainly get wrecked. But I suppose a way that I could avoid this weirdness at this stage of the game would be to just drop my troops in a flag. If it was like actually a contentious state and we weren't generally holding hands singing Kumbaya, which we kind of are right now, I could play like way more cautious. Or I could just live on the wild side and see what happens. F around, Chiscool, and find out. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. Big shout out to the makers of Whiteout Survival for sponsoring today's video. I'm planning to just make a ton more of these. I'm honestly having just such a blast in the early game right now. It's so fun. So check that card in the end screen if you want to see the ridiculous drama. It was absolute cinema. It just was. Watch the video. It was a good time. Until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Take care, everybody.